play a Blitz game for warm-up here. I'll start with d4 this time. d4, c4. See what he wants to play. Maybe a Nimzo Indian. It's all right. Not a Nimzo Indian. So I could play f6 against that. Shut down the bishop on that diagonal. He can still switch into a Nimzo by playing bishop b4 or get a Nimzo-like position. Is it safe to play? Is it safe to play f3? He moves the knight and then brings the queen out with check. It's kind of annoying. But it takes two moves, so. And in the meantime, I'll get this here. Okay, should I take first or should I push? I think I'll push first. The knight can't come forward to these squares. It could go to h4. Okay, so I'm going to bring my knight here. So if the queen comes out with check, I can block with the knight. And this pawn was defended by the queen. Yeah, he's playing this really fast, like it's some line. Maybe it is a line, but I'm not familiar with it. And to be honest, I think he's just improvising here. Don't really believe this. Okay, so there's a neat little trap here. I take with the queen and then castle, and then he plays bishop here, skewering my queen and king. Maybe I take with the queen and he plays there anyway. Let's bring the knight forward. And I guess he can take this pawn then, huh? I can check. Yeah, let's try this. Sort of thing shouldn't really work, it seems to me. He's okay, so the knight is not really defending the pawn because it's pinned, but my queen can't take it because it is defended by the queen. It's just castle. The reason why I think it shouldn't work is because he's kind of ignored his development here, but he did get two center pawns, so yeah, he's going to castle. He'll be all right, huh? Let's bring more pressure on the pawn here. Okay, let's take the bishop. I was kind of waiting for that move. That's why keeping the knight on that square. Okay, let's put the rook on a good diagonal. A good file, anyway. We'll just keep developing. So he's got two pawns. I have the bishop pair. So black is better here. He's got a passed pawn. But he's going to have to start to think now. So I'm hoping that will be to my advantage. And I have targets in the center. The rook here. Attacking the c-pawn looks like the next good move. His pieces are a bit tied up. Queen there. So I don't particularly want to move my bishop. I could defend it, but then he could kick the bishop, and then I would have to retreat, and this pawn would be hanging. So I am going to move my bishop. Let's move it here so that it's out of the line of the rooks. And we'll figure out how to get it back in the game later. And I'm going to put my rook here. Like I said, attack this pawn. Maybe you can win just by pushing those pawns forward. Yeah, like that. I'm already in trouble. If I go here with the queen to blockade, which I have to stop him from forking my two rooks. I don't have to, but it seems likely. That's the right thing to do. Then he pushes this pawn with check. Yeah, I can take his knight, though. Gets one piece away from the fork, and I get two pieces for the rook. I can still push this pawn forward with check. I will step aside, and we'll see what it is from there. So yeah, when he pushes this pawn forward, again, I can take it with the bishop. If he doesn't push it forward, I can take it. So this is looking like I can stop the passed pawns, which was the thing I most wanted to do here. The thing I was most concerned about. So we'll take there. So now we're down to one pawn, which I can take actually. Yeah, so let's blockade it. He defended it, so I can't take it right away. I can pile up on it. And I can blockade it in the meantime. I do have an extra piece. Well, it's two pieces for a rook, so I have a... Is a light squared bishop? I have a light squared bishop. Yes, I have this dark squared bishop and this knight for one of those rooks. And he has two extra pawns, this one and this one. Is that right? No, I have two pawns over here. Okay, so he's switching tack. He's looking to make things uncomfortable for me here. Let's see. But this bishop is defended. This knight is defended. This bishop is defended. Well, this ties down my queen to the defense of this bishop. Let's lift the rook here. I have an idea. I can put my queen here, put the bishop there attacking his queen. See if he pushes the pawn forward, I take his queen, he takes my queen. I take back. I don't know. We'll see what we can do. I just need one more piece attacking that. One more piece attacking that pawn, because he's only got two defenders on it right now. So maybe I could maneuver my knight around. Not so easy. Okay, so I can't move my king. And I can't push this pawn forward to allow my king to come forward because the knight would be hanging. Could give up the bishop, but that would leave me in kind of a bad situation. Bishop takes, rook takes, rook takes, rook takes. Do I have something great there? Here's an idea. Why don't I push this pawn forward? Yeah, so my idea was this, to shut out his bishop. He didn't blockade that pawn. Then I can go here, chase his queen away. Just in time, right? He put the rook there to pin this pawn so he could take my knight. Thought he was being clever, but I was planning to move my knight. I was making a plan, and now I can take this pawn after the queen moves, unless the queen can go somewhere to defend it. I don't see that. Yeah, let's take the queen. I will not do a take back. We're short on time here. No time for take backs. And yeah, that's a win. Okay, let's see if we can maybe get a longer game, get a rapid game here. I was just kind of a little warm up there, blitz game. There we go. Talking, 1940. Good player. I mean, good rating anyway. How about a French defense? Okay, goes for the exchange variation. Let's see how he plays this. Very normal. Knight and bishop, and symmetrical setup. And then I'm going to get castled. He stops me from pinning his knight. Let's get castled. I will stop him from pinning my knight too. That pin is a bit awkward with the rooks on the e-file. There's always this threat of rook takes rook, pulling the queen away. And then the knight is there. If the pin is on it, then the bishop could take the knight and disrupt the pawn structure. So that's why those little h3, h6 moves were thrown in. I think if I'm white, I don't really like to play this way against the French. I think there are much more interesting ways to play against the French. This sort of leads to this kind of position. Let's see, so I could put my knight on e4 now. Knight to e4, bishop takes, pawn takes. His knight has to go back, and I could play something like f5 or bishop f5 to defend it. So if I put my knight on e4, he'll probably play knight to d2. Then I could play f5. Yeah, let's go ahead and try this. It's a bit risky. It's a bit early in the game to be taking adventure with the knight like this. I haven't developed my queen side. But if I can, stick that on there and keep it, then it gives me something to play for the rest of the game. And also, if he puts his knight here, I can just take it and take the pawn. So getting my knight there first was an accomplishment of sorts. Especially since I was black here, going second. It does do that, yeah. So I'm planning to play f5 to defend the knight. Yeah, I don't see any reason not to play it. So, queen f6 is looking like an interesting move, but it does leave the rook undefended. And I do want to get my pieces developed. The question is what to do about the c pawn. Should I put the pawn on c6 to mirror the kind of structure he's got here, protect the d pawn? And then my knight, this knight would come out to d7 and then over to f6 symmetrically. I mean, he's got a very logical setup with his pieces, so maybe I should just mimic that and then figure out what to do with the bishop. Alternatively, I could play b6, bishop to b7, supporting the knight through the center like this, and maybe then go for knight d7 and pawn to c5. Okay, so he's going to swing his knight around to the king side. So the knight's going to come here, hitting my knight, hitting this pawn. Pawn's defended. Yeah, so there's one problem with the b6, bishop b7 idea, which is that when his knight comes here, I'll be moving my bishop away from defense of this pawn. So instead, I go knight d7. He brings his knight out. I bring my knight to f6. And if he takes the pawn, that's defended. If he takes the knight, I take back. How about, so my knight is on f6, his knight is here. How about he plays his other knight here? So he's got two pieces on the f-pawn, and I can't play g6 to defend it, so I would have to bring a rook over to defend it. Actually, that's not so great. The knight's in the way, so the rook doesn't defend it. I might have to take his knight. I guess that's all right. Yeah, let's do this. So knight d7, knight g6, knight g3 rather, knight f6. That's what I'm expecting. Knight g3, knight f6. Ah, I went that way. Oh, that's a good move. That's a good move I didn't think of, because it's a double attack. But knight f6, fortunately for me, knight f6 still defends both pawns. But I do have the problem here that when he plays knight to h4, if he does that, this pawn will be attacked twice. And I no longer can take his knight. I was planning on knight takes g6 to solve that problem, but he put his knight on e6 and forced me to take action because he's attacking both of these pawns. So, good example of calculating, but calculating the wrong line. Yeah, knight e6, so that was a good move, I guess. Knight e3. Well, let's see if he follows it up. And then we'll see what we can do. Maybe there's something I can do against the knight on h4. It is loose there, and maybe I can exploit that somehow. But he doesn't do that. Piles up on the d-pawn. Actually, I don't need to defend the d-pawn because it's defended by bishop takes check. Right, so knight takes pawn, knight takes knight, queen takes knight, bishop here, check. So I just have to get my king out of the line of fire there. Let's step aside. And this has one other advantage in that now if he plays knight to h4, I can play g6 defending the pawn. It's nice to, I mean, it's important to notice these little tactical defenses of pawns and things. saves you the trouble of making unnecessary moves. Can really help your game a lot. Not that c6 was such a terrible move. It shores up the structure, so there were other good things about it. But it wasn't entirely necessary. Even if I end up playing it later, I was able to get this move in so I can adequately defend my f-pawn. You know, there's also another idea. Oh, this knight is defending the rook. I was going to say the rook is loose back here, but it's not. The knight's defending it. The rook gets loose, yeah, so he decides to undermine that way. Not bad. So I'm thinking of just taking. I take, he takes with the bishop. And then he's got this isolated pawn I could play against. Although he has a good battery here with the queen and the bishop. Looking at some sensitive squares. I don't want to allow that to come forward, I guess. So let's take. You can also take with the knight. Yeah, that knight in the center is a nice piece. Hitting my bishop. I might not bother moving that bishop. I might let him take it. I want to get the move c6 in now to fix the isolated pawn here and maybe secure the d5 square for myself. He's got a lot of pieces on d5. Say he takes with the bishop, he'll have queen, bishop, and knight all on d5. So not all that optimistic I can get a piece there anytime soon. But yeah, it's something to shoot for. This is better for me, I think. I don't know what he's doing with the queen. On c5. I'm thinking I want to play my bishop to e6, hitting his queen. I didn't want him to be able to immediately push the pawn. So I played c6 first. He can drop his queen back again and look at the c-pawn. Try and slow me down that way. But I need to get this bishop off the back rank. I need to get my rook into the game. I'm happy with the central structure here so far. The bishop is on the same diagonal as my king. This is a source of concern for the long run. There might be tactics, for example, knight takes pawn, take with the bishop, and he somehow grabs here. Don't see anything yet, but something to keep an eye on. In the meantime, I'm thinking of moves like bishop to e6 and knight to, yeah, he gets his bishop off the back rank. He puts it there where I can take it if I want it. It's not the world's best bishop, though. It's actually the bad bishop behind the dark squared central pawn. Like I said, I wanted to play here. Is there anything better? Not that I see. Is there a problem with this move? He's pushing the pawn forward. I will take it. I think it all works out okay. Get my rooks connected. To get the rooks connected, I guess I need to lift the queen next. I have to worry about the loose b-pawn here. Undefended b-pawn. So queen up to d7 would solve those problems. Okay, so he lines up against my king. Very logical. So how about I go knight to... okay, if I went knight to d5 now and he took it, and I took with the bishop, then could he break through here? I would have bishop, rook, and pawn defending the knight, and he would be attacking with rook, bishop, queen. I think I'm okay. And knight d5. I would like to get the knight to b4 even. Knight to d5 to b4 and force a trade of knight for bishop. I guess that does work. He could take it with the dark squared bishop and I could take back. If I go knight d5, can he take here immediately? I go knight d5, he goes knight takes f5. I go bishop takes f5. Then this, he sacked a knight, but he's attacking this knight with 3 pieces and it's defended with 2 pieces, just the bishop and the rook. So knight here, knight takes pawn, bishop takes knight. Bishop takes knight, bishop takes knight, bishop takes bishop rather, rook takes, queen takes, check. Yeah, I guess that's just wins a pawn for him. So we'll shore up this diagonal a bit. See what he comes up with next. I'm still thinking of knight to d5 as a move I'd like to play. And then if he tries to sacrifice here, I can take back with a pawn. And then my knight will be adequately defended. My king might be a little bit loose, but I don't think he could break through without more sacrifices, and hopefully I've got enough pieces around to handle it all. It's an interesting game. This all the pieces have been kept on the board. Well, we're only on move 17. I guess we are really in the early part of the game. But there's been a lot of maneuvering here. There hasn't been an immediate exchange of pieces. I guess that's the point I was trying to get at. Some pawns have been exchanged, so we have some open files. Things are happening. So, oh, that's true. He can go there. So I want to go to d5 anyway. And I think his knight is not doing too much there. He's looking at these squares. And there might be a sacrifice on g6 there. I don't think that works yet. But maybe he's thinking of coming back here, trying to trade his knight for one of my bishops. That's a possibility. Or maybe he's planning to play f3, chase my knight off of that good square. Anyway, in any case, I want to get this knight active and threaten some things myself. Knight b4, knight takes e3, bishop takes here. Ah, he's threatening to take my knight and win a pawn. I didn't see that correctly. Could he have done that before? Ah, no, not until I move my knight. I kind of created this situation. So right here, bishop takes, knight takes, I'm still okay. But when I move my knight away, yeah, okay. So I didn't. It's what King's Crusher calls the weakness of the last move. I didn't see the weakness of the last move. So let's take here. Well, there's a number of things I could take. I could take this knight first, hitting his queen. He would take back with the bishop or the pawn or the rook. Then I could take here, and he takes with the pawn. And I take his bishop, but at the end he still got queen takes bishop. So let's go ahead and do this first. No, I need to get rid of this guy first. I'm going to, after pawn takes bishop, queen takes pawn, I want to play bishop to f5. And his knight there was threatening to take my bishop if I did that. So now what I'm imagining is he takes the knight, then I'll take the bishop, and if he takes with the queen, then I can play bishop to f4. Pinning this knight, attacking the queen. Well, the queen will unpin immediately. Maybe I can win a pawn there. It all depends on how he takes, yeah. So now I take here. I'm expecting queen takes. I don't think that's wrong. I think he'll just be a pawn up there. But you do have to figure out where the queen is going to go after I play bishop f5. So the queen can drop back to f3. You know, if the queen goes to f3, then I can win this, win the pawn back by taking the knight. The queen could go to f4. Yeah, probably should go to f4. Because it threatens to take on h6 here. Yeah, so bishop f5, queen f4. Maybe pawn to g4. But then the queen can take my bishop. I need to figure out how to defend h3. Tough. I could put the bishop on d5. If the queen goes to f4, then I can play g5. And the bishop is not hanging. The queen can come forward with a check. That's not so great either. Okay, maybe something entirely different. How about just bring the queen out to f6 to defend g6, because right now he's threatening to take on g6, and I was counting on bishop f6 to save that. Oh yeah, that's the problem with bishop d5, is the queen would take on g6. Okay, so if this doesn't work because of queen f4, then queen to f6 seems to be the move. Now let's look at bishop f5 again, queen there. Is there anything? I mean, it's nice that the queen is in a line with this bishop. Okay, I think I have to defend this way. Now I can play bishop f5 and follow up with g5 to chase the queen away. And even bishop to d5 is possible here. So he's got a pawn. I have the bishop pair. And his extra pawn is a little bit weak. If I win this central pawn, then it'll be 2 against 3 on the king side and 3 against 2 on the queen side. I guess well, the other defect in my position is my king position is weak. So white should be better. But it's not over. He's got to find the right way to proceed here. I suppose now if he goes queen f4, I could also trade queens. But is that any good? I don't really want to trade queens, actually. But it might be forced. Oh, I could take the knight. Queen here, bishop takes knight. Defends the queen. But he could just take the bishop back because his queen is defended. Yeah. So let's think about this. Bishop takes knight. If he took the queen, then I would take back and I'm a piece up. So he will take the bishop instead. And he's got this big passed pawn there. Oh, bishop takes knight, queen takes here, check probably. It's what goes. Yeah, that's more likely. So looks like this is forced. So now I can attack the bishop. With the rook or the pawn. Kind of like that idea. I'll bring the other rook over to a central file too. Get both my rooks on half open files. He can play knight to knight to d7 because my bishop is loose. Let's see. Well, I take his bishop. He takes my rook. I take his knight. Well, that's 2 pieces for a rook. No, this bishop is hanging. I can't do that. So he goes there. I have to take the knight, and then he takes the bishop. We'll have opposite colored bishops. But he just dropped back. Okay, didn't see that one. Maybe, let's think about that. If his bishop was there and he played knight here, I could have played rook takes bishop. Okay, so I was still all right. So it's a bit of a hallucination. Okay, so I want to bring this rook to the center, defend my bishop. I do make those mistakes calculating. So putting the bishop on d5 looks like a good square for it. It won't be loose anymore, and then maybe I can lift up my rook and do something with that. Just got to be careful this knight doesn't move with check and I lose the rook here, which is not defended if I lift this rook. Yep. So how about if I play e4, g5. I mean, he can take, I take, he takes, and then I can lift the rook here. Maybe that's no good. Let's maneuver this dark squared bishop around. Put it over here and attack the d-pawn. So yeah, we had a sudden disappearance of all the heavy pieces, but this is, how many points have we got? 10, 16. So by the rule of 13, this is not yet the end game. This is a minor piece middle game. Middle game with rooks and minor pieces. A queenless middle game, that's what they call it. So he played his b-pawn forward to free up his rook. Brought his bishop over there. So now I can think about playing g4. g5. Just threatening to take twice on f4. Want to activate my rooks in conjunction with the light squared bishop. His knight's guarding that square. But I can open up this diagonal, so I can take once here. And oh, I need to move my rook. Shucks. I was thinking I could just take the pawn here, but I don't have time. I have to take with this pawn first. So now we have opposite colored bishops. And so it's going to be a question of who can get the better attack on which color squares, right? I want to attack on the light squares and he wants to attack on the dark squares. And but if the rooks come off, then maybe I will then start thinking about a draw. But for now, I keep my thoughts aggressive. So he drops back there, okay. So let's come forward with the king. His rook can't come here. So bishop can't really attack any of my pawns. Maybe I should have stepped the pawn forward first. Yeah, let's go ahead and put this pawn on the light square as well. Now I can lift my rook up, put it back down. Don't have any way to go after this pawn with my rook. Well, I can put it here. I do have a way to go after that pawn. I was just wondering if I should offer the trade. The rook trade. But if I can do stuff that's active with my rook, then that's the way to do it. And like I said, I should try and attack on the light squares, but I don't have a way to break in. There's a lot of pawns here, and I don't have an open file to enter his camp with. Whereas he could come into my camp. He could come all the way down to the back rank, but he would have to give something up to do that. So the question is, do I need to respond here? Going to attack that rook. Attack that pawn. He defends. Now I could get my rook to an open file. I can't do that. It's not defended there. Oh, it's a shame to take it. He played so well this game. Unless there's a trick here I'm not seeing. All right. Well, that was a good game. I'm going to upload this, and I will see you guys later. Bye.